There's a moment in every woman's life when she stops explaining, stops trying, stops fixing, and simply steps back. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly removes her energy, her presence, her warmth. And that silence, oh, that silence shakes a man in ways he never saw coming. Because men don't feel your worth when you're giving. They feel it when you're gone. They don't realize how much space you fill until the space is empty. They don't see how much peace you brought until the peace disappears. They don't recognize the comfort of your consistency until everything becomes inconsistent without you. This speech is about that shift. What happens in his mind the moment you go missing. Not blocked, not angry, not begging for clarity, just gone. What happens when the woman who held everything together finally decides to hold herself together instead? What happens when your silence becomes louder than every conversation you ever had? Because trust me, when you pull back, it doesn't go unnoticed. Even if he pretends he's fine, even if he acts unbothered, even if he posts like nothing's wrong, something inside him is shaking. His routine cracks, his ego scrambles, his memories wake up, his insecurities start whispering, his heart starts realizing what his pride refused to acknowledge. This is not a story about revenge. This is a truth about energy, presence, and emotional reality. This is what happens in his mind when you go missing. When you go missing, his routine gets shaken to its core. When a woman goes missing, even for a moment, the first thing that collapses in a man's world is his routine. And you might not see it from the outside because men are good at performing calm. They're good at pretending nothing has changed. They'll walk around acting unfazed, relaxed, unbothered. But inside his mind, the ground is shaking. His normal is cracking. His certainty is slipping because your presence, everything about it was part of the rhythm of his life. And now the rhythm is gone. Let me tell you how it really works. Men don't always value the small things while they have them. They overlook the things that feel guaranteed. He didn't think twice about the good morning message you always sent. He didn't realize how many times he counted on you to check in, to ask if he ate, to remind him of appointments, to bring softness into a day he wasn't soft enough to handle on his own. He didn't notice how your voice balanced his chaos, how your consistency stabilized his mood, how your patience kept him from spiraling. These things didn't register as luxuries. He treated them like fixtures, permanent, automatic, yours to give, his to receive. But the day you go missing, that false sense of security breaks right in half. At first, he convinces himself it's nothing. She's probably busy. She just needs a minute. It's not a big deal. He shrugs it off, scrolls, distracts himself, pretends he's above caring, pretends he's too grown, too confident, too emotionally detached to feel the shift. But the truth starts creeping in faster than he expected. Because the moment he picks up his phone and it doesn't light up with your name, the moment he realizes you didn't check on him, the moment he notices that the energy you used to pour into him so effortlessly has disappeared like air from a room, something hits him. A discomfort, a jolt, a strange, unfamiliar emptiness where your presence used to sit. Your absence interrupts his entire thought process. It throws off the balance of his day. It forces him to feel something he didn't prepare himself to feel. Dependency, not romantic dependency, not obsessive dependency, but emotional dependency. The kind he never admitted existed. He depended on your sweetness to start his mornings. He depended on your reassurance to soothe his insecurities. He depended on your attention to boost his ego. He depended on your love to fill the quiet parts of his life. And now those quiet parts feel too quiet. Suddenly, every little thing reminds him that something's off. He opens social media not to scroll, but to check if you're active. He glances at his phone not to text someone else, but to see if maybe, just maybe, you texted while he wasn't looking. He replays the last conversation, trying to figure out if he missed a sign. He rechecks the last message you sent as if another meaning will magically appear. His routine becomes a cycle of checking, wondering, pretending, checking again. And the crazy part, even if he doesn't reach out to you yet, even if he tries to look strong, even if he tries to maintain that typical masculine composure, inside his mind, you disrupted the entire pattern. You removed the comfort he didn't know he relied on. You pulled away the predictable warmth he thought would always be there. Men don't realize the emotional weight a woman carries in a relationship until she stops carrying it. They don't realize how much space she fills until that space goes dark. They don't realize how comforting her presence was until they feel the discomfort of her absence. Your missing energy becomes a shock to his system, a shake to his routine, a wake-up call he didn't schedule. He starts noticing how quiet the mornings are without you, how long the days feel without your check-ins, how heavy the nights become when you're not there calming his storms, how much of his daily life was intertwined with your energy without him ever acknowledging it. And let me tell you the real kicker. A man may not react immediately. He may not text right away. He may not show panic on the outside, but you can bet everything that inside the man is scrambling to adjust, scrambling to understand, scrambling to figure out why the world suddenly feels off balance. Because the moment you go missing, he becomes aware of something he never took time to appreciate. You mattered more to his everyday life than he ever admitted to himself. And now his routine will never feel the same without you in it. His ego starts talking before his heart does. When you go missing, the very first voice that wakes up inside his mind isn't honesty, isn't vulnerability, and it definitely isn't love. It's his ego, that loud, stubborn, chest puffed out ego that pretends it's invincible until you stop showing up. The ego is like that friend who gives terrible advice but talks the loudest. And the moment he notices your silence, your absence, your sudden shift, that ego jumps up like, nah, she's not going anywhere. She's just tripping. She'll be back. She always comes back. She can't stay mad at me for long. She needs me more than I need her. He tells himself these things not because they're true, but because they protect him from feeling the truth. A man's ego is a shield, a fragile one, but a shield nonetheless. It keeps him from admitting fear. It keeps him from acknowledging his mistakes. It keeps him from facing the possibility that he might actually lose you. So while you're silent, while you're healing, while you're reclaiming your time and your peace, he's busy having a whole internal argument with himself. An argument where the ego refuses to let the heart speak. At first, the ego is confident, cocky, borderline arrogant. She's trying to test me. She wants me to chase her, but I won't. She thinks she can ignore me. Watch how long she lasts. This ego-driven narrative gives him a sense of control. It lets him pretend he still has the upper hand. It tricks him into believing he's unbothered. But the ego cannot maintain that performance for long. Not when your silence gets louder, not when your absence becomes real, not when he realizes you're not just reacting, you're acting, you're not waiting, you're moving, you're not clinging, you're detaching. That's when the ego starts to wobble, because you see, the ego survives on attention. And when you remove your attention, when you take back your energy, when you stop feeding his validation supply, the ego starts starving, and a starving ego becomes paranoid. 1 minute he's telling himself, she just needs time. The next minute he's whispering, what if she's done? 1 minute he's saying, she'll text tomorrow. The next minute he's pacing around wondering, why hasn't she said anything yet? 1 minute he's calm. The next minute he's scrolling your socials like a detective. His ego starts analyzing every detail. Are you posting more? Are you posting less? Are you online at weird hours? Did you like someone's picture? Did someone new like yours? Did your selfie look too good? Did your caption sound too confident? Every little thing becomes a threat to the ego, because now the ego isn't just scared you're silent. It's scared you're silent and happy, silent and glowing, silent and unbothered, silent and moving on. But here's the twist. The ego will never admit fear. Instead, it tries to disguise fear as anger. So he starts thinking, she's being dramatic. She's disrespecting me. She's playing games. She wants attention. No, sweetheart, you're not playing games. You're healing from his. You're not seeking attention. You're reclaiming your dignity. You're not disrespecting him. You're respecting yourself. You're not being dramatic. You're being done. But his ego can't process that yet, because accepting that means accepting accountability. It means acknowledging he pushed too far. It means admitting you finally hit your limit. So instead, the ego puts up a front made of pride, denial, and fake confidence. A front that says, I'm good, even when he's anything but. Inside, though, behind that ego wall, the real conversation begins. Because as your silence continues, as you stay missing, as you refuse to reach out, the ego gets quieter. It starts losing its power. It loses the argument. And that's when doubt creeps in like a whisper. Did I mess up? What if she's actually gone? What if she got tired of waiting for me to do better? What if I pushed her right into someone else's arms? What if she finally realized her worth without me? That whisper is not the ego anymore. That whisper is the heart finally waking up, finally pushing through the noise, finally feeling what it refused to feel earlier. Your absence becomes the one thing the ego cannot fight, because the ego can argue with your words. It can deflect your emotions. It can dismiss your pain, but it cannot compete with silence. Silence exposes the truth. Silence forces reflection. Silence makes even the strongest ego crumble. So while he's walking around acting calm, acting tough, acting unbothered, understand this. The battle is happening inside him. And for the first time, the ego is losing. He starts remembering every good thing you ever did. When you go missing, when your presence suddenly evaporates from his life, something unexpected happens inside his mind. His memory wakes up. And not just any memory. The selective, sentimental, guilt-soaked kind of memory he didn't have access to when you were right in front of him, because men don't replay the good moments when a woman is still there. They replay them when she's no longer available. They replay them when the silence starts to sting. They replay them when they realize they took something soft and turned it hard, something warm and turned it cold, something rare and treated it like it was common. The moment you go missing, it's like someone hits a switch in his head. Suddenly, every little thing you ever did, all the small, gentle, loving gestures he ignored or brushed off, start showing up like flashbacks he can't escape. He remembers the way you used to check on him during big days, tough days, or days he didn't even acknowledge himself. He remembers the way your voice softened when he was stressed, how you had this magic ability to calm storms he created. He remembers the way you cared about the smallest details of his life. He remembers how you always thought about him, even when he wasn't thinking about you. And here's the real truth. The things a man takes for granted in the relationship become the things he misses the most after it ends. He starts thinking about the way you made sure he ate, the way you asked if he slept well, the way you noticed changes in his tone before he even noticed them himself. He remembers how you remembered the things he forgot. He remembers how you held space for dreams he barely believed in. He remembers how you forgave mistakes he never fully apologized for. All those moments he shrugged off, minimized, or got used to, now they hit him with a force he didn't expect. He remembers your laugh, not just the sound, but the feeling it brought him. He remembers how you used to look at him like he was more than he believed he was. He remembers how you stood by him in times when even he wouldn't have stood by himself. Now your absence makes those memories louder, clearer, sharper, because when you were there, he didn't have to think about these things. When you were there, he assumed there would be another moment, another laugh, another chance. But when you go missing, suddenly he realizes that chances run out and he starts replaying every good thing you ever did like he's watching the highlight reel of a life he didn't know he was ruining. And here's the deeper layer. He doesn't just remember the good things. He remembers the things he should have done better. He remembers the nights you cried because you felt unheard. He remembers the times he brushed off your feelings. He remembers how he shut down when you needed him open. He remembers how you tried to communicate and he tried to escape. He remembers every moment you reached out while he pulled back. It's not just nostalgia he feels. It's accountability starting to creep in. It's guilt in a quiet, undeniable form. It's the sting of realizing that the woman who gave the most was the woman he gave the least to. A man only starts appreciating emotional labor when he's forced to feel the weight of doing everything alone. And the moment you go missing, that weight hits him in the chest. He remembers how your presence made his life easier without him even noticing. He remembers how you kept the relationship alive when he was disconnected. He remembers how you tried and tried and tried, and he remembers how little credit he gave you for it. Suddenly, he starts connecting dots he ignored before. He realizes your late night texts weren't annoying. They were comfort. Your questions weren't nagging. They were care. Your concern wasn't too much. It was love. Your emotional honesty wasn't dramatic. It was vulnerability. Now, without your presence, he feels the emptiness where your effort used to be. The irony of men is this: they feel the impact of a good woman more in her absence than in her presence. They understand her value more when they can't access it. They appreciate her love more when they can't feel it. They realize what she meant more when she stopped showing up. And that's what you triggered when you went missing. His memory becomes a museum filled with moments he didn't honor. He walks through it in silence, shocked by how much you carried. He starts seeing the truth he never saw before. You were giving him something he didn't deserve but desperately needed. You were loving him in a way he couldn't comprehend until now. You were consistent in ways he didn't appreciate until you stopped being consistent. That's the real consequence of your absence. It wakes up his memory and it forces him to face the fact that losing you wasn't just losing a person. It was losing a whole experience, a whole energy, a whole form of love he may never receive again. He starts wondering who's getting your energy now. When you go missing from a man's life, there comes a moment when his silence doesn't feel powerful anymore. It doesn't feel strategic or confident or controlled. Instead, it starts feeling dangerous because his mind suddenly goes to a place he never thought it would. If she's not giving her energy to me, then who is she giving it to now? A man can ignore your emotions, overlook your presence, and underestimate your worth. But he cannot ignore competition. He cannot tolerate the idea that someone else might be receiving the warmth he took for granted. He cannot handle the thought that another man might be appreciating the very things he dismissed. And this thought haunts him. It starts small, a whisper, an unsettling question in the back of his mind. Who is she talking to now? Who's checking in on her? Who's making her smile? Is someone else getting the attention she used to give me? At first, he tries to brush it off. He tells himself, you're just busy. He tells himself, you're just cooling off. He tells himself, you're just trying to get a reaction from him. But then he sees something, anything that triggers him. Maybe you posted a picture. Maybe you didn't post anything at all. Maybe your status changed. Maybe you're glowing more. Maybe you're offline too much. Maybe you're online too late. Suddenly, everything becomes evidence in his mind. Your silence used to feel like annoyance to him. Now it feels like danger because men know exactly what kind of woman you are. They know the type of love you give. They know how rare your energy is. And they know for a fact somebody else out there would be thrilled to receive what he ignored. Now the panic starts brewing. He starts obsessively thinking about all the people you could be talking to. He starts imagining scenarios even you haven't imagined yet. He starts replaying the names of people who liked your post months ago. He starts remembering the men he saw looking at you when you were together. He starts thinking about the guy friend he used to feel threatened by. He starts thinking about the coworker who was always a little too friendly. He starts thinking about the stranger who complimented you once and he brushed it off. Let me tell you this. A man who once acted like he didn't care suddenly cares too much when he thinks someone else might have access to you. Because it's not just your beauty that bothers him, it's your softness, your consistency, your effort, your loyalty, your laughter, your presence, your attention, your warmth. He knows exactly how heavy, how healing, how powerful your energy is. And the thought of another man receiving it, it stings in a way his ego wasn't prepared for. He starts replaying moments where he didn't treat you right, moments where he dismissed you, moments where he made you feel like you were too much, moments where he left you feeling alone. Because now he realizes something he never saw clearly before. The things he overlooked are the things another man would treasure. The love he minimized is the love another man would protect. The patience he took for granted is the patience another man would cherish. Now the paranoia kicks in deeper. He starts checking your page more often. He starts noticing new followers. He starts analyzing your captions. He starts overthinking your selfies. He starts making up stories in his head. He starts wondering if you're talking to someone who listens better than he did, someone who appreciates you more, someone who responds quicker, someone who actually shows respect, someone who matches your effort, someone who sees what he failed to see. And that is his biggest fear. The idea that you finally realized you deserve better. And you might have already found it, even if you haven't spoken to anyone, even if you're healing alone, even if you're not entertaining anyone new. His mind will still spiral because he knows what you brought into his life. He knows how you uplifted him. He knows how you loved him without conditions. He knows how deeply you cared even when he didn't give the same back. He knows your energy wasn't ordinary, it was gold. And when a man loses access to a woman with golden energy, his first instinct isn't to change, apologize, or grow. His first instinct is fear. Fear that someone else will receive what he once had. Fear that someone else will do better with the love he wasted. Fear that another man will treat you the way he should have treated you. Fear that somebody out there already noticed what he was too blind to see, because here's the truth. Men hate facing. Your silence doesn't just hurt his ego. It threatens his position. It shakes his confidence. It exposes his mistakes. It puts his pride in danger. And the moment he starts wondering who's getting your energy now is the moment he realizes exactly what he lost. He realizes your silence has more power than your words ever did. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she finally understands that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy, it's power, it's clarity, and it's the loudest message she will ever send without opening her mouth. When you stop explaining yourself, stop proving your worth, stop arguing to be understood, and simply choose silence, that's when he feels the shift. That silence hits a man in a place your words never could. It forces him to sit alone with his own thoughts, his own actions, his own guilt, and his own fears. Because let me tell you something. A woman's silence is not empty. It is full of everything he didn't want to face. Silence creates a mirror. Not for you, but for him. When you were talking, expressing, trying to fix things, he was comfortable. He could tune you out. He could dismiss your feelings. He could dodge accountability. He could pretend everything was fine, or pretend he didn't hear what he didn't want to deal with. But silence doesn't let him do that. Silence makes him confront the very things he avoided when you were still giving him your energy. And the crazy part is, he won't realize how loud your voice actually was until it disappears. When a woman goes silent, a man starts remembering everything she ever said, every warning, every boundary, every "this is hurting me," every "I need more from you." He replays the conversations he ignored. He rethinks the moments he brushed off. He suddenly understands that your silence is not peace. Your silence is distance. Your silence is detachment. Your silence is the beginning of change. And nothing scares a man more than a woman who stops trying. Because when you stop trying, it means you've accepted reality. And acceptance is where transformation begins. Your silence forces him to feel the loss before he even loses you. That's the part that shakes him. When you're still talking, he feels safe. When you're arguing, he feels needed. When you're explaining, he feels in control. But when you stop, when you take that energy back, when you decide that your mental peace is more important than being heard, that's when his comfort zone collapses. He realizes you don't need him to understand you anymore. You don't need his validation. You don't need his attention. You don't need him to fix anything. You are choosing you, and that is the most powerful move a woman can make. Silence also shows maturity. It shows you've grown past emotional reactions. You are no longer giving him access to your vulnerability. You are no longer letting him trigger you. You are no longer participating in the same cycle. You have leveled up emotionally, and he feels that shift immediately. Men can't always articulate it, but they can sense it. They can sense when your heart is no longer in the same place. They can sense when your presence isn't guaranteed. They can sense when something has changed, even if they can't explain what. And it all begins with silence. See, silence makes him question himself. It makes him wonder, did she stop caring? Did she stop loving me? Did I push her too far? Did I lose her? It creates a storm of thoughts in his mind because now he doesn't have your words to rely on. He doesn't have your reassurance. He doesn't have your emotional investment guiding the relationship. Your silence forces him to create his own answers. And those answers are usually more painful than anything you could have said out loud. This silence also rebalances the power dynamic. When you were talking, he felt like he had time. He felt like the relationship could go on forever no matter what he did. But your silence reminds him that time is not guaranteed. Women do not leave when they are angry. They leave when they are tired. They leave when they've made up their mind. They leave quietly, calmly, peacefully. And that silence is the warning before the storm he never saw coming. But here's the deeper truth. Your silence isn't about him. It's about you reclaiming your emotional space. It's about you breaking the habit of overgiving. It's about you choosing your mental health. It's about you stepping into your worth without asking for permission. Silence is where a woman finds herself again after losing herself trying to love someone who wasn't ready. In that silence, he finally sees everything he took for granted. He realizes your presence wasn't ordinary. Your energy wasn't replaceable. Your loyalty wasn't common. Your love wasn't something he could just walk away from and expect to find again. He realizes the blessing he had and the blessing he's now at risk of losing. And it hits him harder than any words ever could. That is the power of a woman's silence. It speaks the truth he refused to hear. It delivers the consequences he thought he'd never face. It awakens parts of him he kept asleep. And most importantly, it reminds him that your silence is not the absence of love. It is the absence of tolerance. And once a woman reaches that point, nothing sounds louder. He finally starts feeling what you felt, uncertainty. Uncertainty is a language we don't speak voluntarily. It's a language we learn through pain, confusion, and emotional imbalance. And for the longest time, you were the one speaking it fluently. You were the one lying awake, wondering where you stood. You were the one questioning his intentions, his actions, his silence, his inconsistencies. You were the one overthinking every message, every gap in communication, every shift in his tone. You carried the emotional weight of the relationship alone, trying to connect dots he didn't even bother to acknowledge. But when you walk away peacefully, tables turn. Silence becomes the great equalizer. And suddenly, he finds himself drowning in the same uncertainty he once made you live with. This shift doesn't happen immediately. It builds slowly, subtly. At first, he tells himself he's fine. He convinces himself he's in control. He repeats the same narrative he always used to comfort his ego. She'll reach out. She always does. She'll try to fix things. She always does. But as hours turn into days and days turn into weeks, something inside him starts to crack. The pattern he relied on, your emotional consistency, has been disrupted. The version of you he took for granted is gone, and his confidence begins to crumble. Uncertainty sneaks into his mind the same way it once crept into yours, quietly, then aggressively. He starts checking his phone more often, wondering why you haven't reached out. He replays old conversations, trying to decode your last tone of voice. He scrolls through your photos, searching for clues in your smiles, in your captions, in the energy you give off now that you're no longer trying to hold the relationship together. He suddenly becomes hyper aware of your absence because it no longer comes with explanations, reassurances, or emotional handholding. You see, uncertainty is the shadow of emotional imbalance. When one person gives too much and the other gives too little, the one who overextends always ends up confused. But the moment balance shifts, when you reclaim your space, when your silence becomes firm, he is the one thrown into the dark. He starts to wonder what he never worried about before. Is she talking to someone else? Has she moved on? Does she still care? Did I push too far? Is this really over? These questions eat at him because now he has no comfort, no clarity, no control. This is the part most men never see coming. They assume a woman's loyalty is unshakable, that her patience is endless, that her love is forever. They underestimate the moment when a woman becomes emotionally exhausted. They underestimate what happens when she finally chooses herself. And when that shift occurs, uncertainty becomes his new reality. The same feeling that used to tie your stomach in knots now tightens around his. The same fear that made you question your worth now makes him question his decisions. And the irony, he doesn't know how to handle it. Men are not built for emotional uncertainty the way women are. Women adapt, grow, and strengthen through it. Men panic through it because uncertainty attacks the ego, the pride, the false sense of control. It forces him to confront a truth he avoided for too long. He is no longer the priority in your world. He no longer occupies the center of your emotional universe. Your mind is no longer orbiting around his actions. Uncertainty also opens his eyes to your emotional depth. He begins to realize how difficult it was for you to stay patient, to stay hopeful, to stay committed while he gave you nothing but confusion. He starts to understand the emotional labor you carried, the weight of trying to love someone who wasn't giving you the security you deserved. Now he's the one refreshing messages, analyzing silence, and spiraling over small details. What was once your emotional reality becomes his. And let's be clear, uncertainty is not about revenge. It's not about making him suffer. It's about balance. It's about emotional truth finally catching up. It's about him experiencing what he never took seriously when you tried to communicate it. Uncertainty becomes his teacher, the same way it once taught you difficult lessons about self-worth, boundaries, and emotional strength. This phase humbles him. It softens his arrogance. It makes him rethink everything he assumed he had under control. He begins to experience what losing you might feel like. And that fear cuts deeper than anything you ever felt because he finally realizes how rare your love was, how consistent your effort was, how comforting your presence was. He realizes that you weren't clingy, you were loyal, you weren't emotional, you were committed, you weren't overthinking, you were trying, and now he's the one trying. Uncertainty brings him face to face with the consequences of his actions. It forces him to confront the emotional void he created. It pushes him into a space he never thought he'd be in, the space where he is unsure of you. The roles reverse, the energy shift, and suddenly he feels exactly what you felt. And that is when the real awakening begins. The moment he realizes you were the piece he couldn't replace. When you finally go missing, not out of games, not out of revenge, but out of emotional exhaustion, something powerful happens. The silence he once ignored becomes the very thing that keeps him up at night. The absence he thought he could handle becomes heavier than he ever imagined. The version of you he took for granted becomes the version he starts searching for everywhere. And the peace you created for him becomes the peace he suddenly realizes he can't find in anyone else. Because here's the truth. A woman who loves deeply leaves a mark, not the kind you erase, but the kind you feel long after she's walked away. Her presence becomes memory. Her effort becomes contrast. Her consistency becomes the standard he never appreciated while he had it. And when she steps back, when she chooses herself, when she stops fixing, chasing, explaining, or begging, that's when his reality snaps into focus. He finally feels the weight of everything you carried. He finally understands the emotional load he placed on you. He finally sees the value of what he thought would always be there. And that realization, it doesn't whisper, it hits. And you rise, not to prove a point, not to make him suffer, but because your spirit needed space to breathe again. Your glow isn't revenge, it's recovery. Your silence isn't punishment, it's protection. And your absence isn't the end, it's the beginning of you becoming the version of yourself he should have appreciated from the start.